Hare Krishna, dear devotees and friends. So today we are again here in Mayapur Dham with our dear friend Kalakantha Prabhu. The last, couple of years he is based here in Mayapur with his wife and 2 daughters, Nara and Nanda. We are very good friends. We are often going to his place to making kirtans and taking delicious Brazilian prasadam.
Right.
And since 1 year and something, 2 years, he is a minister of ISKCON for cow protection and agriculture, developing these things.
Actually, time passes. It's going to be 5 years.
5 years?
Yes, in February it's 5 years.
All right. Hare Krishna. So please tell us more about your experience with the cows and farms in ISKCON and why this is important phase of ISKCON, especially nowadays.
Very good. Well, just to answer your question, it started 5 years ago. And at that time I came to Mayapur mainly to educate our children. So we were in Brazil. My father is a teacher of agriculture and he's a government agent developing the region. So there was always a pressure for me to do something in this field of agriculture and cow protection. So when we met in those first days, I was just investigating what needed to be done here in ISKCON, and we started in Mayapur with a simple basic point. Devotees need to produce their food. Why? So much contaminated food today. You know, if you go everywhere, the milk is contaminated, the vegetables are poisoned, grains are poisoned to dry them. You know, with Roundup, even oats, now you hear all this different informations. And it's impacting our health. So much of cancer is now a major cause. Some years back, the major cause of trouble was heart attack. Today, most people survive heart attack. I have a friend, farmer, had a heart attack and says, I'm stronger than before. But cancer, it's a different story. Mm-hmm. So there's a big concern, and Prabhupada was very clear on that point. He says you should produce your own food because you basically become independent. It's like a car which has a fuel production. You can go anywhere. But if you have to buy the fuel, you have to work, you need to generate that income, able to buy the fuel. So in our society, it's like we are receiving a lot of energy, a lot of donations, but we are not generating. So all that energy, a lot of it goes out just to run the car. And Prabhupada's instruction was, you should produce your food. First, you can control the quality, you can control the price, and ultimately you become independent. So I thought this is an important point to start with. So we started here promoting seminars, and then we got a piece of land for the grihastas to grow their own food, and all of those details was very much revealed to us, the challenges which they face, which are not few, it's quite a lot. And that's when we met, and actually we were doing kirtans and studying philosophy, so it was a very good preparation ground for me to have a look at the whole field of a devotee's life. You come here, you don't have an economy, what are you going to live from? You have to travel, then your family's behind, the whole social problem behind that. So how could we solve it? Now, if we had affordable homes and if we had food production, most devotees would be very happy to go on serving, and whatever is needed extra, they can always make a special summer trip and do some collection, book distribution, and that makes up for the difference. So we were trying that, and it was not so easy because we had to face our own limitations, our own laziness to go there, to change values. Now, values was the most difficult part because we bring a value system which does not include contact with nature, the production from nature. We are used to generating money in a job and then going and spending that money. That's our sanskar. And then
it's easier.
It looks easier, but it's actually much more difficult. Because think about it. To do that, you need to have a job. To have a job, you need to have a graduation, then an MBA, and then a master's. And what? Sometimes even a PhD. So by the age of 40, you're qualified. Or 45. When, if you produce your foods from the first place, you're already living in an awesome place, spiritual, with your family. and life is going on. All you need to do is how to organize society.
And also, you could say most of the people, they can produce fruits and vegetables,
Yeah,
but not
even-
everybody can finish masters or PhD or...
That's a very good point. Because, I mean, even your balcony, you can start producing a pot of tulsi or some flowers for your deities. And that's something any child can relate to. And then it expands to a back garden, communal garden, then producing grains, then getting to the milk part of the equation, which is not so easy. But if it's done as a community, it's much easier. So what I realize is analyzing the life of a devotee here in Mayapur, you can analyze the whole society. Just Prabhupada says, by taking one grain from the rice pot, you know if the rice is cooked or not. So similarly, what are the challenges that we face in a bigger scale? The biggest challenge are values. The devotees are not connecting to that basic value that Prabhupada was trying to embed in his early teachings, that spirituality followed by self-sufficiency is very powerful. You see how the whole world is talking about local economy, carbon-free emission places. Germany is all about that, bicycles and solar energy. Prabhupada was doing that in the 60s. But
50 years ago.
we couldn't grasp his vision ahead of time. And the reason is very simple. Everybody, when they're subjected to a contaminated, adulterated environment, feels the impact on health. First, health of the physical body, then health of the mind, then health of the intelligence. The three levels are affected. And we're just talking about health of the body. So society understands, or at least has some early glimpses, that something must be beyond the system which is in place, which is very chaotic and is generating a lot of pollution. You know, just to generate food, you need to use chemical fertilizers, urea, and that contaminates our water tables. And then there's a whole problem also of scale. 2 people on the farm planting 1,000 hectares in America, in Brazil, 10,000 hectares, 3-4 people. So if these 3-4 people quit their jobs, the amount of food which they're producing is compromised. 10,000 hectares become compromised with 4 people. So the ratio, people, land, people, cows, are completely upside down. So if you go to the dairy industry, the same ratio, people, cow, is what's causing the problem. Because the cows, they are actually a source of wealth. But they are wealth for people, not for a company.
So how, in the Vedic system, how exactly the cows are a source of wealth? Well, we heard that if you produce your food, this is good for your health, it's good economically. What about the cows? Most people, they think that to have a cow, this is actually a burden.
Absolutely.
It takes lots of energy, money, and so on and so on.
Absolutely. And I've heard that again and again. Oh, yes, very beautiful, but in practice, it's completely different. I heard people saying that way. But actually, when you look at the Vedic times, there was even wars about cows. Kings were fighting, called Gavasti. It's a war about cows. So if you want to expand your wealth, what do? You go to another kingdom and you steal their cows. Now the people who are depending on those cows now will complain to you as a king because you have not protected them by securing their cows, and now they don't support you as a king, and then as a king you start to go down. So how did it work on an individual level? It's very simple. The land belonged to the king, and the king gave you, because he saw you were a very productive man, ingenious, creative, innovative, and you could produce very much. So he gave you some piece of land. If you did well, he would expand that land for you, and you take part of that to maintain the kingdom. So the cows are the most syntropic being on the planet. Okay, and let me qualify what I'm saying by syntropic, right? There's 2 movements, entropic and syntropic, and entropy is always decaying. It's a law of the universe of decay. If you leave a house in a place after 10 years, the walls, you have to renovate it, and that's the entropic forces playing, right? There's also the syntropic forces. When you put a seed in the ground, what happens? 100 seeds, 1,000 seeds come. And there's even a quote of Prabhupada. It says, here's a banyan tree, from it will come a very tiny seed, and it's holding seed. And in this seed is the whole forest, and that forest has the power to replicate ad infinitum. This is the potency of God in this seed. So that's a syntropic power. So the cow is the most syntropic being. Why? Because it takes grass, it generates fertilizer and energy and building materials for houses. It produces milk, which can in itself be a medicine. It's called go rasa. It has so many vitamins and nutritious aspects. That milk also has the power, with that element of go rasa, to nurture finer tissues of your brain. So therefore, it's a statement in the Vedic times that actually, when you nurture those tissues, you're able to understand higher philosophical topics. So that's how the cow is nourishing the Brahminical culture on an intellectual level. It's nurturing the Brahminical culture as fuel, because the cow dung was fuel to cook. And actually, the energy which comes out of the cow dung is the top one. Then wood, then gas, then electricity, and microwave, and doesn't even count. Microwaves, so we never even count on that logic. So there you are, there's the cow generating that. It's the most syntropic being. And the urine is also medicinal. It's also a pesticide on the fields. It also can be used against pests which attacks the cow itself. So there's so many usages. Yeah. And then we got to the ghee. And then ghee, in the 11th canto, Krishna say, I am ghee. You remember, you're the one who told me this quote, and I was excited to see. Among all the elements of yagya, Krishna is the ghee. So, and then the ghee is what goes into yagya, and yagya is what makes opulence in the universe and generate rains. And rains, you have grains, and from grains you can sustain life. So there you go, the whole cycle. Just like you have the water cycle, the plant goes by osmosis, transports it, then it puts the water into the atmosphere, it evaporates, becomes clouds, pours into the ocean, it's kept salty to maintain the qualities of the water in a big reservoir, and then again it's evaporated by the sun, goes to the cloud, falls down. This is a water cycle. Every child of 8th grade knows that. But what they don't learn is that there's a cycle of nutrition in the universe, and the cow is right at the center. Because it's a very subtle relationship. Therefore, science hasn't grasped it yet. And that's one of
it's more subtle science.
It's much more subtle science.
Okay, so why, like in India, looks that it's much easier to take care of cows? I don't know, because of the climate and so on and so on. But like when we come to the West, it looks like a big thing. Because people are saying, yeah, you have all these laws from the government, and the climate is not supportive, and you should give this and this medicines and this vaccines, and so...
Right. So that has a deep-rooted point, which we haven't as yet talked about. When you talk about the Vaishya universe, and the Vaishyas are the ones responsible for protecting the cows. Just like the king is responsible for protecting the people, the Vaishyas are responsible for protecting the cows. And the Brahmins will be responsible for protecting the scriptures, dharma, so the whole society is nurtured, right? So when the Vaishyas are illuminated by dharma, protection is natural. And then compassion comes, and care comes, and loyalty comes as a value. There are many values which come, which are being illuminated by dharma. Now, when society drops dharma, then all it has is artha, economical development. Then when you look at the cows from a perspective of economical development, you get what you got in England, in India, by the British. The British people looked at how many cows, so many cows were here, so they came up with the argument, oh, the officers are getting sick because of the milk, let us have our own places for the cows, and we'll do it as a big company. And they made a commodity out of milk. That's the first time India exposed the idea of milk being a commodity. Until then, milk was just something that was part of the culture.
Available to everybody.
Everyone, if someone came to your house, you would milk your cow and give some milk for him as part of your etiquette. Especially if he was a sadhu like you. Then you definitely get some milk from every householder. So it was just part of culture, and because of illumination on Dharma, taking care of the cows took that sanctity, that aspect of respect and care and protection, right? So when you transfer it to the environment of commodity, you're lowering, you're removing Dharma from that. Now it's all about quantity, how many liters, what is the business plan behind it, and that's the birth of our dairy industry. It is basically taking care of cows without Dharma. Okay, so in the West, when we say it's very difficult, there are two factors. First one is the climate. The Prabhupada is a little bit interesting. He says, a gentleman should only live where there are palm trees, right? Where coconut trees and banana trees grow. But in the case of these places, which we are there, so what happens is, there is a winter. So because of the winter, you need to supply that much more hay, and it can be quite challenging for that part. But if you have a good system, even in Siberia, you could have systems where you produce most of your hay, you just need more land. So that would be, but if you just now go back to the cows and you say, no, the cows is only this square of how many liters of milk, that has to pay for everything, you made it into a commodity. Then you've missed the whole dharmic part of cow protection, then it becomes very difficult. And you need lots and lots of funds to run it. So when you come to India, the same concept is plaguing everybody, because now everything is about how much milk, and then because there's no dharma, what to do with the bulls, what to do with the cows. Okay, we can't kill them, we just let them go in the road.
Yes.
So India has a huge population of cows and bulls on the road. And that's a big problem. Why? Because these cows, when they're on the countryside, they just go into somebody else's farm and eat the whole production. And they get angry. So recently, some farmers just locked up so many cows in a school playground. And all the cows are inside because they said, these cows are creating havoc. They're eating our crops. So yeah, so that's how in India is also affected by that commoditization, if you want to say like that, the lack of dharma in cow protection. That's the reason how it was done before.
Basically, can we say that like taking care of cow is like, the cow is like part of your family, like
Absolutely.
One of your children?
That's actually how India used to take care of cows, because they were so close to the family that they basically lived by the kitchen. You go in the kitchen and there's a stable. And the family has 2-3 cows and sometimes a bull or 2 bulls. That's the other part. When you take out all the fossil fuels, what's your best transportation system? Some say the horse, but the horse needs a lot of energy. So the amount of land to produce the food for the horses versus the amount of energy you take out from the horse is very high. While the cows, they'll eat any rest of crops. They can very much fit with an agricultural lifestyle. So besides, their speed is very much in the mode of goodness. So if you have the experience of riding a cart, it's such a royal experience, Just the other day, this cart is coming to the Goshala empty, and me and my wife jump on it. And we are riding. You feel like a king, It's riding, and you're strong, and it's tall. So you just say, wow, this is incredible. So it's balance, it's in time. The speed of the bulls has a resonance with your speed. So there's something nice about that. So most villagers depended on bulls for their power. Transportation, milling, anything was done with the help of the bulls. Mm-hmm. So in that case, the economical power of the bulls was really sustainable, because you had the bulls on one side and you had power on the other side of this taking care of bulls. And in some places, the bulls were more important than the cows, because it was all about bull power. Remember, America was built on bull power. Now they were taking all these carriages with bulls, right? And so from that perspective, the bull power is much more sustainable than the horsepower. It requires, of course, dharma. It requires peace of mind, and that was what the Indian countryside was known for. When I was a young boy, I lived in India. I was 13, 14 years old, and my father was doing his PhD thesis in Cambridge and here in India. And then he took us to some villages. I mean, it was just like so incredible because I had never been to a place where there's such a peace. People talk about Buddhist temples, but that was such a peace, like, because there was a temple, they produced their food, they had economical development. This village produces cloth. So one produced the cotton, one threaded, one colored it, and another made the thread, and another family sewed it, and everybody lived. So they had time to stop, to talk to us. It was such an opulence of time. And
it's not that you work like every day 12, 13, 14 hours.
Absolutely.
And at the end, what? You have just your food and
your
lots
house.
of problems on your head.
And so much complications because you have insurance policies, you have a neighborhood policy, you have the government with taxes and this, and the city permits you cannot drive today because today the car is not allowed. So you're so entangled in a universe of complexities that these people in the village in 1982, they were just there. And whatever this man is trying to achieve by going to the Himalayas, he had it. So again, everything very balanced. So that was how in Vedic times the economy was circulating with a lot of connection with the natures of law, the seasons, what medicines to take according to season, which herbs to cure in which seasons, and Ayurveda, because it's all coming from God. So it's perfect. They were capable of still recognizing some of that knowledge, and to whatever degree they recognized, whatever success they had. So again, going back to your point, which is economy and balance versus challenges, the more we see the whole picture, the more we see the opportunities rather than the challenges. The more we try to make it into a commodity, the more challenges we have. So that's, I think, where we are.
So the main problem is the value system.
The value system is the main problem.
The value system is changed. That's why we don't see actually value in such kind of lifestyle, having cows, trying to produce your own food. That's the main challenge.
Absolutely. And the values are changing so fast because before someone valued a book was a precious item, almost like a sacred item for some people. The bookshelf is well kept. And you could tell who someone was just by their bookshelves, Today it became e-publication. So it's just a question of volume. How many terabytes of books do you have,
No matter how many you can read during this lifetime.
Not just that.
Still you should have that, just in case.
And it's so many that that specific book is not even one reference anymore. So even like that ritualistic aspect of having a book and reading it and studying it became something very fast. So the values towards knowledge has changed. It's just a question of volume and speed and how much data you can process. Before, the book itself was like a honorable deity, For communists, you had the book of Karl Marx to show. For agronomists, the Soil Testament, the Agriculture Testament of Albert Howard. It was a book that you said, yes, this is something.
Yeah, so
today's a list in your file, in your hard disk, there's one book, the Agricultural Testament, yeah.
Nowadays very often we kind of tend to go in the direction of quality rather than quantity.
Yeah, when you look at qualities and people...
These devotees, they are trying more and more to go in this direction. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the idea.
Prabhupada mentioned, we have a lot of members, time to boil the milk. And what does that mean? Quality. Because when the milk boils, it becomes perfect. It becomes kheer. It becomes all the good things that milk does in a very mature process. So now it's time for devotees to think, okay, we need to change our perspectives and include the children in that new value system, which is basically a Krishna conscious lifestyle, which includes Mother Earth, includes Mother Cow, includes a lot of cultural aspects which are so relevant to live an awesome life. And people looking for that purity. So once we have it, it's not like a cheap phrase from Prabhupada. It says, if this farm community becomes successful, we will envelope the whole world. He said that. Meaning, if you have the lifestyle, everybody wants to be part of that, because that's what they're looking for. And these elements, producing your food, taking care of cows, having space, having a nice atmosphere to educate your children, to have a temple of worship where you can go daily, do your spiritual practices, that's very much desired today. And we have it, we just have to look at it a little bit differently.
Nice. When we speak about practically applying all this, can you say what are some of the practical challenges that you saw around the world, and also success that we have in a certain places?
Absolutely. A very typical example is someone wants to open a farm community or intentional community or a goshala, and they start by the toughest process first. Like you can say, you open a community, the first thing you do is you put the deities there. The deities are the toughest because you need so many brahmanas to maintain that worship. Otherwise you end up like hiring someone which doesn't have the same mood, you depend on it. So it just becomes a race to fulfilling the Brahminical minimal requirement for the deity to function, instead of being there thinking, oh, what does our community need to grow? What are the elements needed for this community to grow? So I've seen many communities, the whole protocol is finding someone who's going to worship the deity today. And there's a whole culture around that. Similarly, someone wants to start a farm and they start with the cows. Well, the cows is the last beings which can come into the environment because they require the most attention, resources and everything. So communities where they start by the food production, grain production, develop an economy, and then slowly develop the cow protection program, it's very sustainable. Because remember, cow protection can only happen if the ratio between cows and humans and land is right. If the ratio is wrong, you have a lot of extra work to do.
So what is the ideal?
The ideal, I saw a very good situation in Czech Republic. You went there, you saw devotees happy, not so many problems. And then we asked, so what do we do? So we grow grains. We produce 25 tons of grains. Oh, that's good. And we buy 75 from the neighbor farms. And then we invested in a mill to process flour. So we have flour, biscuits, and breads. And our product is so good that we have a waiting list of clients. So they have secured something which is a real product. People want it. It's not a question, I believe in you, I believe, I don't believe you. Your product is good, I'm interested, I want to be part of this product. So then they sell it, and then when they reach a certain financial stability, now here comes the cows. And they brought 2 or 3 cows, just enough for one family to take care of, and it's really well taken care of. And their focus is not getting the cows to get donations from some group. So that's another trick. Many people see the Hindus with a very soft heart to give protection to the cows, to do Goseva. They say, okay, let me put a Goshala, so I attract all this money. And then they find themselves having to invent a fundraiser agency to keep that program running. So all the energy goes into a fundraiser, and the actual cow protection becomes way behind. That's another challenge. So I would say the practical experience I have seen is one that they are very much aware of the hierarchy of developments, and you start by the easiest one, which is producing food. Because food nurtures the community, and then you have economy nurtures the community, then you have the cows nurturing everything. So just the natural steps. And then you have the deities nurturing spiritually everyone. So it's just a progression.
Nice. How many devotees in Czech they are taking care for this thing?
There are not so many. The farm itself is about 10 or 15. They produce most of their food, but they also have challenges. They do it good at the production, but now they're seeing how they can engage the bigger community, and that requires a different set of skills.
Mm-hmm.
someone who is good with congregation, good with people, who can. So that's theirs. Everybody has a challenge. So that's what the challenge is. There are many places doing well. People make this question like only too often. Oh, you've traveled? Which is the best farm in this country? That's they want to understand.
So which one?
Yeah, so which one, right? My answer is also a generic answer, is everyone is doing good in one or two or three aspects. So depending on what you want to accomplish, one farm is doing a lot greater than the other. And then the collective can be a great teaching example because we can learn from another. I can give you a few examples. For example, if you look at volunteers, nobody's ahead of Australia. They created a Krishna village concept, which is awesome. What is a Krishna village concept? Basically, it's a place where you come as a volunteer and you experience a variety of activities that someone who is not yet a member of ISKCON would like to do. Yoga, massage, and all these new agey things, coaching, life coaching. And some people, so if you're a volunteer there, you can take part in these activities also for free, if there is space. And the regular customers come and they take these other products that they're offering in the Krishna village, which is a dedicated separate space. So here you have someone who brings in the money and funds the village, and someone who brings the power, the labor, and works in the village. So in that way, instead of spending money, they earn a good money from this program. So that's one example of a very good management around volunteers and newcomers and people who are not exactly members of ISKCON, but they're kind of around. Then, of course, if you want, there's another ashram called Krishnapada, which you're kind of independent, but at the same time you have a tutor. And then if you're really mature, then you can join the ashram as a third and final step. So there's going up the hill, because the Krishna village is down the hill, then there's halfway, then there's the top, which is the temple. So geographically it worked there. You know, so that's an interesting model. Now let's go radically. If you talk sustainability, the best research done is in Hungary, near Prajadam. And I'll just give you one example. When they planned the village, they said the houses will be higher so that the sewage will run by gravity. So we don't need pumps. So they got the best technology for tubes, and then the tubes leads to a collecting tank, which now goes through a wet sewage system, which is called the reed bed, just a grass. And just by the water crossing the root system of this grass, it purifies 99%. Pretty efficient. And just to make sure that it doesn't leak to the water table, they bought some German very good compass, which lasts 300 years, and they put under this reservoir of 99% pure water from the sewage, and then that water irrigates a forest, which they call the fire forest, the energy forest, which goes back to heat the houses. And then the ashes goes into the fields. So they have closed the cycle. You take the grains, you deject something, that deject becomes clean water, which is then taken into a forest of fire or wood energy, comes back to your house, heats up your house, the ashes go back to agriculture. So that kind of research attracts a lot of people who are looking for this. So there's a lot of potential into that. And that's one, I could list at least 50 innovations that they have implemented successfully. They have their own coin, their own internal coin called the sham. So if you work there, you get half in forints, which is the Hungarian money, and half in shams, which you can buy internal produce. So it's a long list, what they have done. It's very good work.
So Prabhupada, he had also such kind of idea, yeah?
For here, it is called the Gaurangas.
Yes.
The Gaurangas of Mayapur.
So hopefully in the future we'll have this.
We should start our own coin in Mayapur. I think it's a great important thing because the community is growing, and if we start developing our internal coin, it could favor a lot the local community. Yes. Yes.
I also wanted to ask you about lately it's very important question. More and more people they are getting vegans, and from one side we can say there is some benefits from this. From other side, we know cow and milk products, dairy products, they're an important part of the Krishna conscious lifestyle. So what's your opinion on this topic?
It's very interesting how we don't realize the power that we have as a preaching movement. In the 60s, very few people knew about karma. Karma? What's karma? Yoga. And all of a sudden, the whole world knows about karma.
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation. You, as a book distributor, you know this, right? It becomes a popular topic, yeah? So the same way, we don't understand how book distribution created such a big impact on food habits. Because all the vegetarianism books that we distributed had a great impact in society. But by some reason, society, when it became ready, another group which was actually working from the 1944, the vegans, which was supposed to be vegetarian, the first syllable and the first and last word in vegetarianism, you put just vegan, you take the je, te from the middle, so vegan becomes that. They'll be the ultimate vegetarianism movement, which excludes any animal participation in the equation. That's their thesis, right? And in that aspect of actually trying to avoid violence, it's a very important contribution. Yes, we should avoid violence in our lifestyle. Ahimsa is a value for the Vaishnavas as well. So they have understood correctly that part. But then the equation has some missing parts. Because they couldn't see the subtle relationship between the cow and nature and humans and the Brahmins. They skipped that part. And it's a very important environmental, sociological, spiritual connection that they have jumped over. And by jumping it, the whole system that they're proposing won't be successful. Because let's say you take the cows out, you have to depend on fossil energies. Because who is going to dig with their own hands the grounds for producing crops?
Or to go from one place to the other.
How you transport? So you need to depend on fossil fuels. When you depend on fossil fuels, that's where the real problem of global warming comes from. That's the real problem of acceleration, of income disequality, because some become industrialists, really rich, and the most are just peasants working, or factory workers. So the whole situation that they want to protect the animals, but if you don't acknowledge the cows and the bulls in the system, you are left with the Ugra Karma, which is the fossil fuel system. So that part that they have not contemplated on is what the Vedic contemplates on. So then, yes, we shouldn't create violence, but we should understand that the cows and the bulls are special, not because they're part of a religious group, but because they're part of the universal blueprint. Just like water evaporates, the cows nurture. Whether you like it, you don't like it, you agree, you don't agree, that's the role that it was given to the cow. And if you don't acknowledge that, you'll be at one point suffering in your nurturing system, especially your brain.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some idea most of the places in ISKCON, do they think about this ahimsa milk kind of to try to get more in our temples for our deities, ahimsa milk? What's the situation there?
You see, ahimsa milk is a very interesting and complex topic because to be able to produce it, you need a community. So therefore, because we don't have so many communities, our production is small. And then if you just go beyond and you just say, okay, everybody should stop drinking milk, which is not ahimsa, basically what you're saying is everybody should stop drinking milk. And maybe for 20, 30 years. Now you can imagine what kind of impact this has on children who are forming their intellectual capacities, on health. It's a huge impact. So the real discussion is not if it should be this or that, what's the transition? We have no doubt the goal is to only take milk from protected sources. That is the goal. Because Krishna likes the cows, he doesn't like to see his cows tortured. Yeah. Nobody likes to see a loved one tortured. But
it's a process.
It is a process, because to get there, you need to do many steps. And we're not discussing the steps. Therefore, we're not discussing transition. Therefore, it becomes an abstract concept. So that's why recently when there was ahimsa, balancing ahimsa proposition, many people thought, oh, this is like giving credit. You drink some milk from the store, just give a little money and you're free from that reaction. That's not what it's about. That is actually saying that, okay, I cannot personally be involved, but let me help the transition to take place.
Yes.
If you understand transition, then you wouldn't go against this. But if you don't understand transition, on a very romantic platform, you say, no, it's not acceptable. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. And then someone with that argument might then say, oh, but there's so many leaders doing that. Are they wrong? And they'll tend to say yes, but I say no. They're right. Because if important people don't take that radical position, the pendulum won't shift. Everybody will just remain drinking milk, having pizza parties, and thinking it's great. And that's not what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada used that source of milk, but simultaneously, he immediately said, you produce your own milk. In the Vrindavan, Gitanagari, and they were really going with a lot of enthusiasm to do that.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You have to do something about it.
We do, and the best we can do is now. It's not in the future. And it's a transitional step. So we can all get involved in the discussion, sacrificing some of our funds, our time, thinking about it, doing discussions in our group, in our Bhakti Shastri group, in our Namahatas, in our Bhakti Vriksha groups, we can start discussing how we can get involved. And by understanding the transition, we'll make a very nice decision. Many people have prematurely given up job and everything, and when they're in the city, in the farm situation, they say, oh my God, I can't handle it. So what did they miss? The transition. The transition is what Prabhupada was all about.
It's important.
It's the important point now.
So then, can you tell us a little more about your personal transition? You just mentioned to me that you are planning to move from the place where you are living now.
Right. Well, what happened was, when I came to Mayapur, first we didn't want to make any business in the Dham. We're very conservative with this idea. The Dham is a holy place. We need to respect the holy Dham. So we didn't want to get involved in anything which was seen as a business in the Dham. So I refrained myself from buying anything or getting into these ideas. And we just said, we'll just be here. And we were, by Krishna's grace, blessed with places, good places to stay. And now it came a time when we were thinking, so what's missing for our transition? We can speak to the world, but what are we personally in our life doing? So an opportunity came up where some devotees are trying to get together and live a more natural way of living with allow space for planting. So maybe that's the time to get involved. So we have been having great discussion at home. Can we cook with cow dung, gobar gas? Where's the kitchen? How does it work? What if there's no heater, no electricity, out of the grid? How we do it? Which technology? That has been very exciting because all of a sudden you see the transitions. And it transitions at home. If we can do it at home, then we can say, yes, you can do it in other places. So, yeah, I think the next step is really getting involved and hopefully more and more devotees will. The ministry will have many other members participating and we can give a practical example. I dream like teaching in the future, a school which can really teach these values and can show the values, much less intensive, like today everything has to be so fast. What about slowing down so we can digest the philosophy, digest the culture, digest friendships in the Holy Dham, discussing philosophy, discussing what's the goal of life. And I think that's a great platform to teach, and it needs a practical space to do that. And there are many devotees already thinking like that. I'm very happy I'm not the only one. On the contrary, I'm taking a ride on other people's inspirations too.
Yeah, normally in the West, people, they think that everything starts from action. In the East, they think everything starts from thinking, thoughts. So basically, education is in the
Exactly.
proper ideas, they will generate proper actions after that, proper value system and so on and so on.
I was in Ukraine and one of the leaders told me, I believe in what you're saying, but I want to put the proper seeds on the ground because I want proper trees. So he is making a big investigation about how that is designed, how that is put in time and space, so that when it's presented, it's within a framework of correct planning. And I think that's the way to go. That's what I call transition. You know, we don't take everybody from a town and just put them on a farm and says, okay, go. You make a whole transition process, which may take a few years, but once the transition starts, it's a question of time. That's it.
And for people, it's easy to handle this.
Yeah,
change.
because they can see their needs being taken care at every different step of the transition. Yeah?
Nice.
Okay.
Would you like to say something as a man?
Yes, I would like to say that the world is really thinking about this. We as the community, as the Hare Krishna community, have a lot to contribute. We have a lot of research on Dharma. We have realization about Dharma. We have been talking and discussing living God consciousness. There's enough maturity and influence in our society. The more we take this to heart and we discuss, the more we see our children, our grandchildren, having much more incredible lifestyle, you know, full of Krishna consciousness, communities, and time. Hare Krishna.
Thank you
you
very
so
much,
much. It
Kalakantha.
was wonderful to see that you're doing such a great job.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
See you again
Krishna.
soon.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.